Welcome to the next in a series of our Mortgage Solutions interviews. With us today is Andrea Rozario, Director General of SHIP. So what particularly piqued your interest in the emergency budget yesterday?
I think the budget yesterday, what we've got to remember, was an emergency budget, and how that's actually going to play out is still yet to be seen. There was a couple of things. I mean, one thing in particular was the fact that they have drawn attention to the fact that the public pension fund is underfunded to the tune of about £1 trillion, which is naturally going to have an impact on those that are looking to draw on that pension in the coming years. And VAT as well. The increase in VAT is going to hit pensioners because they have less disposable income, and the products that they're going to be buying are going to be going up in price. So naturally, it's going to have an impact on them. And I guess one of the things that I find frustrating is the fact that we do have this inequality in the generations in terms of distribution of wealth. The bulk of the UK's wealth is tied up with the older generation, and much of that is tied up in their bricks and mortar. So we definitely need to try and find some way of allowing people to readily accept that they need to tap into that equity to help fund some of these gaps that are emerging, not only the public pensions deficit, but the fact that we've also got a social fund deficit of the tune of about £6 billion as well.
For brokers to complete on an equity release deal, it can take up to 2 years, be complex, and also often involve third parties such as family and solicitors. I wonder, brokers are looking to diversify, but principally quick, surefire returns are more of a priority right now. Why should brokers refocus on the equity release market?
I think 2 years is probably a little bit of an overestimation. It may well be that you have to nurture this market for some time because people can take a while to make up their mind. A year is not out of the ordinary for somebody to make up their mind, but for a transaction to go through, you're probably looking at 3 to 6 months. However, I think the whole professionalism around advisors is evolving and developing. And I think advisors don't necessarily have this attitude of wanting to make a quick buck. They're investing in their future, they're investing in their qualifications, and they see themselves as professional, which is exactly how they should be perceiving themselves. As you quite rightly say, 79% of business comes through intermediaries. And just referring back to the report that's launched today, the customers that had gone through the advice process actually mentioned in that report, their comments were that they were incredibly impressed with the level of professionalism, the fact that other options were discussed, and they were incredibly happy with the advice that they'd received. That was in the high 90s. So in that case, I think the advisors that do invest their time and effort into this industry are professionals, and therefore they're not looking for a quick buck.
Equity release providers got a bad name, to be fair, in the early days of the market. They gained a reputation for making money from badly informed and sometimes desperate homeowners. How's the market shaken off its predatory image, and have brokers played a part here at all?
Well, if I take that in two parts, the image that you're talking about is such a long time ago now. I mean, we're talking about 20 years plus, and yet we still have these reputational issues. And when you consider that the equity release industry probably has more safeguards than anything else, it's somewhat frustrating. But clearly we're not getting the message of how safe these products are today out. And we need to continue making sure that people understand that products are now regulated by the FSA, and the safeguards that SHIP members abide by put an extra layer of confidence there for the consumer because they have tangible guarantees that are written into their contracts. And when you consider the satisfaction levels of the customers, which again will be borne out by the results of this report that are being issued today, again it's in the high 90s. So what we need to do is to actually make sure that that message is getting through to brokers and to the consumers and to the powers that be, and certainly around the political circles. But it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to be a softly drip, drip, drip. And that's something that we intend to push forward with.
SHIP's been lobbying hard this year to persuade the government to promote equity release to pensioners as a retirement solution. How much of a battle do you still have on your hands?
I think it's now a case of having to redouble our efforts. Previous to the new government, we were making massive inroads, and what we have to do now is to start engaging and building relationships with those politicians that have taken up recent posts. Naturally, there is been an awful lot of change within the government, and so we do have to not start from scratch as such, but we do have to make sure that we increase our efforts. In terms of getting them to understand the concept of equity release, I feel that that's like pushing against an open door. The general attitude we have is that yes, we appreciate that equity release is a viable option, but what we have to try and do is make sure that we can engage with the politicians and government as much as possible, so that we make it clear to them that equity release is a logical decumulation option, and these are the ways that we feel can help older people in retirement have a better standard of living, help pay for their care, and plug the gaps that are becoming increasingly wide when we find ourselves in this economic climate.